Hi, I'm Greg Ulan with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. We are live at NADA, and I'm excited about this conversation. I get to sit down with Ed Roberts, who's the COO of Bozard Ford. We've had Ed on before. It's always great to talk to him. And Troy Blackwell, who is the SVP of Business Development at Spiffy. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Ed, I want to start with you. I swear you're the face of the franchise when it comes to mobile service, right? And I think you're up to 7,000 vans now. But no, seriously, what is the status at Bozard? Because every time I talk to you, you're growing that business, growing that portion of your service department. So how many vans are you up to? What's that look like today?
We own 46.
Okay.
We run 41 of them right now. The opportunity is really to make that our main source of service, and coming into service is our secondary source. So
okay.
Whether that number ends up at 200 vans or 300 vans, who knows what that number will end up being, but there is no threshold where we're going.
Okay, great. And so thinking about the vans, because I don't know, to me, I kind of looking at it, if I'm a dealer and I haven't started down this path, I have a lot of questions, right? Like, okay, how do I make this work is kind of the biggest thing. So at a very basic level for you, what's kind of your target for number of ROs per day, or do you target hours per day? What's your metric that you're looking at for a van? What are you trying to get out of a van?
So I talk to a lot of dealers about this when they're thinking about stepping in. And the key is determine what your break even is. Figure out what it costs you to run that van, how much that technician costs you, all those things, and break that down into hours. So let's not even look at parts, let's just look at the hours. And then once you determine what that break even is, then that's what you chase after. And it doesn't matter how many ROs it is, it doesn't matter how many visits it is. Are we breaking even on that van? Whatever we make in parts is already profitability.
Right.
But there's my measuring stick. So I don't look at the program. Is this a program profitable? I look at the van. Is the van profitable? And what adjustments can I make to that person? Those things that we're doing with that to make it profitable. And so it's more of what's my return on each van? Are we delivering what we set out to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about that, I think you've gone back and forth. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've had one tech in a van, two techs in a van. Where are you at today? What have you landed on, at least at this point, that's been the best for you guys?
So originally we did start with two techs in the van, and we flipped that back and forth a few times, just trying different things, because you can't land on what's right if you don't try anything different.
Right.
Right now we are one person per van, with the exceptions of a few apprentices. It's just more effective that way. It's less conversative when we get there, instead of having multiple people having multiple conversations where it really absorbs time. There's just a lot of efficiencies comes back from having one person in the van, and it becomes easier to measure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing. We'll come back to a few other things around kind of metrics that you're looking at. But Troy, I wanted to get a little bit from you too. Can you just talk a little bit about Spiffy? So I think you guys have done a great job. I've seen you. Obviously, you're partnering with Bozard in a lot of different ways. But give a little background for anybody that maybe isn't familiar with Spiffy, or if they are, maybe a little more detail on what all you guys do.
No, happy to. The Spiffy's been in operation since about 2014, so a little over 10 years.
Yep.
And really where we started, we had two founders in North Carolina, the Raleigh-Durham area, that started with a brick and mortar standalone car wash. And what they were seeing is on a Saturday, a line of cars trying to get a car wash.
Right.
And they said, well, this may not make sense. What if we get into mobile and go to the customer? So they had an idea and they had a vision, and they started with a couple mobile vans, went out and did wash detail. So it started on the B2C, so to speak. And then it started to grow because there was this convenience, right? This customer saying, well, it's a lot more convenient for them to come to me than go stand in line and wait in line to go do a car wash. So that then turned into fleets. A lot of customers started saying, well, can you do oil changes? Can you do tires? Can you do brakes? And so big customers like Amazon or Enterprise Rental, they don't want to shuttle their cars to like a Pep Boys or Goodyear. Sure. So can we come to them? And so that is kind of how Spiffy evolved. The other great thing that's come out of Spiffy is we built software to manage this process internally. So unlike a lot of software companies where they create something and then try to go out, and we had to create it to run our business.
Right.
And so with that, we also created upfitting of our vans through technicians. So technicians said, I need these tools on the van to be the most efficient. So I'll tell you, 10 years later, we've done 3 million services.
Wow.
Across the nation, 400 vans, 600 technicians, and we've learned a lot. And we've evolved and we made iterations to our van, we made iterations to our software.
Right.
And now we're to the point now where we're saying, hey, we understand mobile is the future. Ed is a testament to that. It begins with leadership. Kudos to Ed and his team. They have a vision, they stick to it. And we're there to help the dealers. So now we're just saying, hey, what can we show you the software to help you with it? Can we help you with the upfit? And then just work shoulder to shoulder, and we'll figure things out together.
So is that how you're partnering, the two of you, where Spiffy is providing kind of, and talk about the software a little bit too, but so you're upfitting the van. So Ed will get the van, you'll upfit the van with everything that it needs. And then what from there?
Yeah. In Ed's situation, they already had a lot of vans in play. Future state as he grows, we'll start participating in the van upfits based on his team's feedback. And then also with the software piece of it, you go back in and talk to the dealers, what's working, what's not, what tools are you using? Oh, we use a Google spreadsheet. Wow, it's impressive that you've been able to manage all of this on a Google spreadsheet. What do you think about this tool? So I found these guys at a SotoCon and they were kind of targeted for me to go have a conversation. So inviting. If you've never been down to Bozard, go down to Bozard. They invite you down, give you a tour of their operation, which is incredible. And then, so since then we work with his team, Jeremy Stevens, a remote service director.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that Ed and I've talked a lot about. The success is they separate it. They have a remote service director, entirely different than the fixed ops service manager at their location.
Yeah. Yeah. So is the software that you're using is it mostly around logistics? Is that kind of what it's managing, is really the logistics and the flow of, okay, I go from point A to point B to point C and then back to the shop, or what is it managing?
Yeah, so I'll start and then Ed can tack on, but route optimization is the biggest piece. We want to automate. The biggest thing is if we can reduce a few bodies and have the software help with productivity and process and automate, instead of sending a van to the north side of Jacksonville and one on the south side, our technology and software is smart enough to know drive times, how long a job is going to take. The technicians have an app too that they go through and they put their local MPIs on there and customers. And we haven't even begun to talk about the customer side of this, the 5-star reviews and everything that they get.
Okay, good. So you brought up Jacksonville and I kind of know where Ed's located. What radius do you serve with these mobile vans? Like how far away from the store will you go?
It depends on the situation. We've went as far as 300 miles south of us to service customers, but it really depends on the situation. I'm not going to drive 300 miles to service one vehicle.
Sure.
But I may drive 300 miles where I put somebody in a hotel and we service hundreds of vehicles over a week's period of time or whatever. So that opportunity is endless. But more of the software, like you said, with logistics and whatever, it's finding what that break even is and then finding ways to become more efficient every single day to where the software knows what the capabilities of that technician is. So I'm not sending the wrong technician to a customer's house as well. And then also, and then forward thinking a bit is looking at vehicle data where, okay, customers gave us a need. We look at vehicle data. Now I can determine what van most likely has the piece that we need and the capability that we need. And we can route the right vehicle to that customer to take care of them with one visit rather than have to come back for a second visit. Yeah,
that's a good point too, is making sure you have the parts on the van, right? Like if you're going to drive even 50 miles, right? You don't want to go up there to do a diag, right? You want to make sure you have the parts on the van when you go to do the service, whatever it is. So
exactly.
That's a really good point. And that's probably, well, I was going to say that probably it's going to get easier over time. That's not the case. It's not going to get easier. It'll get different, I guess, over time.
We're going to look at different things over time. We should always be looking at things, and it never gets to a point where we're not looking at anything anymore.
Right.
So even once we get past these things that we're looking at, we need to be looking at something else to help us with that efficiency.
Right. So, all these kind of year after year, I keep thinking that you're gonna tell the world, hey, we kind of plateaued, growth's slowing a little bit, but every year it doesn't. You just keep growing and growing and growing. But I don't see the majority of dealers out there enjoying that same growth or leaning into this nearly as much as you are. So do you think, obviously you're committed and you're in, but what factors do you think play in to a successful mobile service kind of customer base? Is it clientele? Is it location? Is it geography? Is it brand? What factors play in? Because I can't imagine that every single dealer in the country, I know that they don't have the same geography, right? And they don't have the same clients and they don't have the same brands. So are there factors that maybe benefit somebody moving towards mobile service than others?
I think so. And it's more so of what is the vision of the company? What do you want to do with the business overall? Because, as we said, the number of vans that we're running, but I'm in a town of 14,000.
Right.
And most of our audience here certainly has a little bit larger clientele than we do. So they don't have to spread out as far, and then you can tighten those things up. But the key is to start with a business plan. And a lot of times what we do in business, whether it's with mobile or whatever, is we go out and we dip our toe in and say, let's try this.
Yeah.
And as soon as we run into that barrier, okay, that won't work. Well, you can't do that. You got to make the decision to jump in, whether you belly flop in, you cannonball in, whichever way you jump in, and then you'll find ways to overcome the obstacle. You're not going to jump in and just sink to the bottom and drown. You're going to do things to fight your way back up.
Right.
And that's what you have to do in business. You got to jump in and let's work through those obstacles. But start with a business plan. Quit asking yourself, what can I do? And ask yourself, what can't I do?
Yeah.
And when we shift to those things, you'll find ways to overcome some of those obstacles. But our customers want it. It's a convenience for our customers. As he started to touch on there, a lot of times we service over 2,000 customers a month in our mobile operation. And a lot of times we get 100% CSI across that. Well, most of our audience services about 2,000 customers a month in their drive.
Right.
How would that feel to have 100% CSI with every customer that comes through there?
Yeah.
That's telling us that we're meeting our customers on their terms and that they appreciate what we're doing. And it doesn't have to just work for us. It can work for anybody.
Yeah.
Just got to start with that plan and work to overcome the obstacles.
No, that's fair. And that's a good perspective. Troy, what about you? So obviously you've at Spiffy seen a lot of different parts of the country, right? And seen different customer bases and kind of went through a growth period. So what have you seen? Any trends, I guess, whether it's by brand, by demographics, by geography?
Yeah, it's just, how do you build, as Ed mentioned, how do you build with the leadership? What's their vision? That's kind of the starting point. And then we've built a book of best practices over 10 years. So when I usually sit down with dealers, we said, what's your opportunities? What is preventing you from going in this direction? Can I come to them with a binder and say, here's the steps that we think you can do to get successful in your particular market? So, and it may start B2C, and you may already sell fleets currently at your location. Well, there's an audience right there.
That's true.
And then there's a recall side of it too, right? So there's 3 buckets that we usually will break this down for the dealerships to look at. And then the software to help manage it so that they're not running all over the place. So yes, Ford's probably came out the quickest and furthest ahead. But there's other OEs that are starting to get into that. Stellantis is starting to talk a lot about mobile service. Yeah. And so we're starting to help them out as well.
Yeah. And I want to speak on that a bit because it's one thing to be in a Ford dealer and to get the push from Ford to, hey, go do this because it's what they want to do. But we could do it with any manufacturer. And when you got partners like Spiffy, and you can learn from their 10 years and you can learn from what we've done, and they can provide the van, they can provide all those things for you to help you get started. Now it's just about what can I do out there. Yeah. So the avenue's already been paved. It's about stepping into it, using partners, using resources like Spiffy, and learn from us, learn from our mistakes, so that you don't make those same things over. But don't wait for the manufacturer till you have to do it. Go out and pioneer your way through it. Go out and set the tone and have your leg up on the competition around you.
Yeah. So if I'm a dealer and I want to do this, right? I don't know, is there a way to go to the manufacturer and say, can you help me? Right? Because I think about a van, right? You got a $100,000 van. Is there a way the manufacturer can help with that? Is there a way, are there, and maybe Ford has programs to help. I don't know if other manufacturers do, but is there an easy avenue if I'm a dealer and I'm just thinking, all right, how can I get started and make this as painless as possible and maybe reduce the risk as much as possible? Because I'm going to jump in. I don't want to drown, right? So how do I get some of those weights off my ankles? Any advice there on how to work with a manufacturer to help get something like this off the ground?
Well, if you get it off the ground and you can show them the results from it, I mean, every manufacturer is trying to conquest from another manufacturer. And when we're out servicing our customers, they may have a different brand as the other vehicle in that driveway, and they know what type of service they're getting from that.
Yeah.
And so that's the comparison piece to where I got a chance to conquest that. So when you go to the manufacturer with an opportunity to conquest, that's what they're all chasing after. How can I get more of the market? Go to them with a plan of conquest, and they will support the elements of conquesting, because that's what we're all trying to do, trying to gain a little more of the market share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I won't even call it my fair share, because my fair share is all of it.
Yeah.
But I just want to make a piece.
Any perspective from you? You mentioned obviously Ford and Stellantis.
Yeah,
any thoughts on that?
I think all of them are talking about it, especially if sales get tough in any of those brands, then they'll lean towards fixed. What can we do in fixed to help drive revenue? And mobile right now is automotive is almost like the last one to kind of get into this game, right? So Stellantis is currently looking at offsetting for warranty work to help the dealers to get into this.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to, like Ed said, let's show them the numbers, show them what's working, and the rest should take care of itself.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Is there any, draw for the manufacturers for certain services to be mobile? I just think about parts revenue, right? And obviously they benefit when we sell parts on an RO. And I think about mobile service, and you can do a lot in a driveway. You may or may not have high parts revenues there though. So I don't know. Is there any angle there to consider, I guess, when thinking about this?
You have to take the holistic approach, because it isn't just what we can do in the driveway. It's the things that we can do in the driveway are the most time-robbing things in a dealership. So you got an operation that takes 20 minutes to do. Well, it takes 10 minutes to go get that vehicle, get it into bay.
Yeah.
The 20 minutes, the 10 minutes to go park it, another 20 minutes for the paperwork, where I could have that technician, I could take that out of the equation, go out in the infield, take care of that, and have that technician working on something that is more in line with what his specialty is.
Yeah.
And so I'm keeping them more in tune. So if you look at it from the holistic approach, do I sell a whole lot here? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I do so much more in making my shop more efficient, because I'm not tying it up with all those things that are really time robbers.
Yeah. It's a good perspective. I like that. So thinking about kind of the blend of mobile and the shop, right? The in-store experience. I'm curious, I have an assumption, but I want to hear from you. Have you seen a difference in retention by doing, mobile repairs? And then those folks, when they do need something that's going to take more time and they need to come into the store, have you seen an increased retention for those folks with people coming back into the store as well for service?
Absolutely. They become locked into us. But you can layer in things to help intensify that even more. There is times where I'm going to come to you and I think that I can do a mobile repair, and I find out that I can't.
Yeah.
Well, now I got to make the decision, is the vehicle safe to drive or is it not safe to drive, and have that communication. But then in addition to that, I still want to offer a convenience. So if the vehicle's safe to drive, then now it's time to shift to a pickup and delivery. Let me bring you something out to drive, and I'll take it in and do what we need to do to it. And that's what owns the customer, because we're giving them their time back. It's like Troy talked about with Spiffy getting started. They got started because they saw a line at the car wash.
Right.
That takes time away from people. And he's built an entire business based on giving people their time back. And that's exactly what this is giving them their time back. And with that creates the loyalty.
That's a good.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Over time, I think the latest number I heard is over 70% of those customers at some point defect from the dealership, and they're going to your Pep Boys and Goodyear and places like that. How can we recoup that business? And if offering mobile service gets them back, then great. If it goes 10%, 15% more, and we'll slowly grow that base back to your dealership and that loyalty.
And to add to that, to give the specifics, the industry is just now over 30% of a vehicle coming back in for service after its warranty period. Mm-hmm. Well, at Bozard, we're almost 80%. And sometimes we do dance in that 80%. So we are getting that back. So those are the raw numbers. But that isn't just mobile. That's a lot of things layered in there. But mobile is a huge contributor to that.
That's really high if you're keeping that many coming. Because then you got to figure a considerable percentage of that number then is a repeat buyer of their next vehicle. Right. I mean, if you keep them coming in for service,
keep the circle of life going.
Yeah. Why would they go anywhere else?
Exactly.
So that's a pretty impressive number at 80%.
Yeah. You don't want brand consideration. You own the brand at that point. You own the customer. And you almost have to mess something up to prevent from having that customer back the next time around.
Yeah.
Because they know what level of service they get with the other vehicle in drive. They know all those things. And most people, the average consumer, is not loyal to a certain brand. Us that's in the industry, we might be loyal to a certain, but it's the things, it's how it makes them feel. It's the conveniences that it offers them. It's in the U.S., really, a vehicle is an extension of our personality.
Right.
Well, they already have something that's your brand, that's an extension of their personality. Why not continue on with it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I want to throw this out there because I'm curious what your guys' reaction to it is. But I've believed for a while that, when it comes to a vehicle, right? When it comes to what you're driving, and then when it comes time to buy it next, most people aren't buying a car every 6 months, right? Sure. They don't really remember their last car buying experience. We put a lot of emphasis there, and it's like, we got to create this great experience. Yes, we should. But when it's time to buy a car, they want to buy a car, right? And either you have the car or you don't have the car, and either the price is right or it's not. But when they come back, I think it's a lot to do with the ownership experience, right? And what it's like to drive that car, what it's like to get that car serviced. And I think getting the car serviced has a lot to do with how fun it is to drive that car over time, right? Yeah. So that ownership experience, I think, is really what breeds retention versus anything else. You can create a great experience in the showroom, and you should. There's no doubt about that. But 6 years from now, when they're actually ready to buy another car, that they don't remember what that was like, right? And then they go through it again, and then they remember, like, oh, that was great. But when it comes time to buy, they're not coming back because of an experience they had 6 years ago. They're coming back because of the last 6 years. Every single day, their butt's in that seat. And does the car work great or doesn't it? So I don't know. That's kind of my perspective. I don't know.
Well, I'll touch on that because you're exactly right. And the old adage is sales sells the first, service sells the rest. Well, let's dive into that just a bit. The buying experience is just what you said. Sometimes it lasts hours, maybe days. Depending on how much research you do, it could last weeks or a month.
Sure.
But the ownership experience lasts years. Mm-hmm. So the thing that is going to
daily.
stick in your mind is the ownership experience. And when you can elevate that and raise the level of it, there's no question to what the brand is. There's no question to where you're going back for at least to consider the next model. And then if you don't close it at that point, there's different things that you got to look at. But we have to put more emphasis on the ownership experience because that's what's the lasting impression.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, think about the touch points in a mobile environment that you do have over this time. Like Ed's mentioning 80%, that's a Bozard number, which is pretty impressive. Yeah. But now that engagement. So I go out and do a mobile service. Well, I just touched that customer. What if I gave them an appraisal? Yeah. And get them, oh, you know what? I am interested. So I'm going to get this much for my car. So those are things that are going to happen as well. And the CarMaxes and Carvanas that you hear with the dealerships, like, how can I buy more cars? It's another way.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, guys, I definitely appreciate your time. I want to be super respectful of it. I know you both have a lot going on this weekend. Troy Blackwell, Ed Roberts, thank you both so much for joining me. Have a great show, and we'll catch up again soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
It was great to catch up with Ed Roberts and Troy Blackwell on the Florida NADA. What they are doing with mobile service at Bozard Ford and with Spiffy across the country is really, really impressive. I definitely learned a lot getting a update from Ed and learned from Troy as to what they're doing at Spiffy. Make sure to check them out if you have the opportunity. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every week here in February when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.